Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's how it worked, isn't it? That was far more like it. Rocked your world there, didn't it? Rocked your world just a little bit. That's what we do of a Monday afternoon. We rock worlds. Welcome to this. This is a conversation around how design can encourage people back out into the streets, into restaurants, into bars. So when we decided we were going to have that conversation, it made perfect sense to find some of the most interesting people I could on the subject of design. We started with my good friend David Chenery, who inspires me every time he speaks, if I'm honest with you. He's very smart. And then, wow, the rest of you just... Claire made me happy before Christmas when we caught up. From Baranowitz and Kronenberg coming over from Tel Aviv. Hamish, just stars, absolute stars. So I'm going to stop speaking. I'm going to enjoy my hot chocolate. I'm going to hand this microphone over to Hamish for you to get started.
Thank you so much. What an introduction. So, this afternoon's session is on how restaurant design can get customers back into dining out. And I just want to make this abundantly clear. We're not talking about COVID. Hurrah. We're talking about consumers' behaviours changing and evolving over the last, I would say, 10 years, I think is accurate, with the arrival of convenient delivery services that provide customers the ability to enjoy restaurant-quality food from their home. This poses questions and challenges for the hospitality industry. Conventionally, I would say, there are two forces working against each other, but also with each other. Service, the menu, that's the quality of food, etc. And then we have the design. I think it's fair to say as well that in the past, design has often been an afterthought, potentially. Now, these days, with everything going on, design has to work much harder. My name's Hamish Kilburn. I'm the editor of Hotel Designs. Hotel Designs is the leading international hotel design website. I'm also the host of two podcasts, one of which being Design Pod, and the other one is the Marriott Bonvoy Traveller podcast. And my panellists today are Claire Smith, Director of ABDA Design. Claire, you have
23 years.
23 years experience.
Yes, Mike Six working. Yes, so I'm with the directors of ABDA Design, and we specialise in F&B design, anything from bars, restaurants, commercial kitchens, in the UK and overseas.
And you trained yourself?
Yes, so I have family backgrounds from design and yet work my way up through the business doing that.
Amazing.
So,
we also have Alon Baranowitz and Irene Kronenberg, the founders of Baranowitz and Kronenberg, who have designed a multitude of hotels, restaurants and hospitality lifestyle spaces over the years. I want to know what it's like working with your best friend / partner. What's that like, guys?
Challenging.
No. And we also have David Chenery, founder of Object Space Place Unlimited. And David, you massively look through design through the lens of sustainability. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. It's something we've worked for the last few years on, is how we can make the fit out and design of spaces genuinely sustainable. So we've done that by developing something we call a restorative design framework, which is based on the principles of a circular economy. I'll probably touch on that a bit more as we go through. But
amazing. I just wanted to say, just before we go into the questions, I've never seen the vision stage look so beautiful. So congratulations to the team at Harp Design, and obviously all of the contributors that you can see alongside the stage. Hayley is at the back of the stage there. If you want to speak to her, you're more than welcome to. So let's talk about boundaries to start with. So how are boundaries in restaurant design being blurred? And I would say, would you argue that there are more sort of residential styles happening now with this whole challenge for hospitality, delivery services at home? Are hotels, restaurants and hospitality, do they have to become more home from home, would you say? Is that fair to say?
I think we're seeing it more certainly, for example, Lot Group I think are doing it really well, that you're seeing this kind of mix of hotel, restaurant, apart hotel, and I guess making people feel a little bit more at home. Their shared spaces are quite intimate, there's intimate lockout spaces, so definitely we are seeing that more and more, I think.
We can't really talk about boundaries being broken without talking about your urban playgrounds that you're designing in Manchester. Talk to us about that and how that is blurring the boundaries in F&B, Aaron and Irene.
Yeah. We said that we are not going to talk about COVID, but
Oh dear.
what we feel is that we know at the very beginning of all these last 2 years, we thought that the world will change completely and the people will change completely their approach to relationships, actually. And what we are aware right now is that people want to be together and they want to enjoy life now more than ever. And that's why urban playgrounds are a great platform to people to interact and to have a joy together. And it's a great opportunity, really, to create these kind of venues where you can really see how people, not only they go and drink and eat, they are interacting together and they want to play together, and there is this feeling of something very light that it's around you, that it's absolutely amazing.
I think that's really interesting, but I think I'm going to take an opposite point of view just for the sake of discussion and debate. Sorry, can you hear me okay? I think the really interesting point, it's tempting to look for change and to look for the new and to kind of fetishize the new, but actually the core of hospitality hasn't changed and won't change. You know, hospitality is the act of inviting somebody into your home and making them a meal, but it isn't your home and it isn't the meal, it's the invitation is the core of hospitality, and it's how you curate that. And if you have a brand that's more about convenience, then the invitation is, hey, let me make this easy for you. And if you have a fine dining offer, it's, hey, let me make this special for you. And actually, you know, Jeff Bezos, when he talks about, you know, change and technology, and people think Amazon are obsessed with change, his point is, actually, I don't care what's going to change in a year. Tell me what's not going to change in 10 years, and I can build a business around that. And I think actually, in a way, whilst as designers we can be drawn to the new and the different, sometimes the core philosophy of what it means to be human and what hospitality is where we need to spend a bit more time thinking.
Would you say that clients are understanding design as a tool and a solution more than in, say, 10 years ago, David?
I don't know, actually. I think some are, some aren't. I think for us, because we've gone now through a lens of sustainability and looking what we can do to make a change, we're very much focused on trying to do something rather than be someone. And I think that you can look at brands and hospitality brands that are trying to be someone, who are trying to be big, who are trying to have, you know, start a concept and be 20 sites in 5 years' time for no reason other than it suits their ego. Or you can find ones that are going to try and make a change. We want to bring a new cuisine type that you don't know in this country. We want to move to plant-based. We want to be a social enterprise and care about our community. I think there are people who are trying to do something, and those people understand design as a tool to help them do that in the most meaningful way. And then you're always going to have people that want the superficial window dressing that is a new hot bar that does cocktails on dry ice because it will go well on Instagram, for example. And that's just not our client. That doesn't mean that isn't a valid part of the market for some people to serve, because some people's definition of a special experience would be that uniqueness. So yeah, I don't know if that understanding has got any more or less.
And then just a question for everyone, really. What's the dominant sort of brief that you're getting from clients? What is it they really want from the spaces that you're transforming?
I think certainly on our perspective, a lot of clients are wanting something that's going to serve different purposes throughout the day. So I think you find now that some places, they want to be open from 8 a.m. right through till 12 p.m. And historically you say, well, that's a pub or that's a bar. But now we're finding, since working from a hotel or working from restaurants become more popular, that we're being asked to look at a space and see how it will operate throughout the day, right through, without feeling like a pub you're having coffee in or something. And I think lounges do that really well as a concept. I think they were one of the biggest growing chains over the last few years, and that's because they do that very well. And certainly within hotels, F&B and restaurants, that's what we're getting asked for.
And David, you mentioned earlier about things staying the same. I guess what you're saying, forgive me if I'm wrong though, is like really trying to find the brand's DNA and its identity and drawing that out through design, but also throughout the whole sort of holistic journey of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Program.
I think your brand DNA is a word we use quite a lot, because even say we come at this with quite a strong sustainability mission, so people aren't coming to us unless that's in the brief, because we'll just be annoying to them otherwise, frankly. But we know that the reality is the majority of customers, no matter what market research says, the buying behavior of people tells us that most people do not want sustainable restaurants. They want great restaurants that happen to be sustainable. And you can look at, say, the market research says 67% of people make their buying decisions with sustainability in mind, and then you track their actual behavior, and it's 23%. And that's something called the intention-action gap. And as designers, we need to be aware of that. And our goal is to make aspirational, wonderful, amazing things that chime with the brand DNA, whether that is a lounges or whether it is that is a destination space that does something special that no one else has done. But yeah, the brand DNA has absolutely got to be the guiding star, which means it also has to be right. We have to agree with it, because if their brand DNA is, let's put as much fast food into the world as possible,
You're endorsing it.
Yeah,
I understand.
exactly.
Yeah. Alan and Irene, I just want to share with the audience, you're not shy to take clients outside their comfort zone. And actually, when we met a few years ago, there was one project that changed your whole approach to how you design. And I just wondered if you could share that briefly with the audience, because it's such a captivating message for today's industry, I think.
It was long ago, I think in 1999, which is 23 years ago. That was a moment that we understood that we need to shift our design into storytelling. And actually, whatever we do, we first need to find the soul of the project, or the brand, or the experience, and then develop our own story upon this narrative. So every touch point, everything is so holistic that transcends the pure functional thing. Like you said, design a restaurant used to be like something that, okay, let's do something nice, let's be like a beauty commission, and then we bring the food. It doesn't work, of course, for so many decades. So we started with that like 23 years ago. And what we're trying to do is to transcend our customers while they are in the same space, to open their minds to other worlds, to other interpretations. Like you're reading a beautiful book, and each time you enter this book, it feels different because you read it differently, although it didn't change. So if you are able to give these kinds of depth to a space, to a program, to a brand, then you fall in love with it forever. So since 1999, this specific restaurant, because we really touched the soul of it, whenever they refurbish it, they refurbish it to the same design as it was on day one. It never changed. And when you enter it today, it's timeless. Yeah. So when you enter it, it's like 1999, but it's so timeless that everybody loves it. So, and it's still modern, it's still fresh, it's still kicking, and there's nothing else around it really. So I think it's like the book of the Little Prince, You read it when you are 6 years old, when you are 12 years old, when you are 20 or 30 or 40. It's the same story, but you read it differently. And that's what's exciting about this book, because you find the truth. In each age, a different truth. Now, if you can do design work like this, well, this is really the top for me. Yeah.
It's interesting when we host these panels, it's, to an audience, but actually anything that's worked for you in the past as experts, it won't work for everyone. You've got to find that core, that meaning of a project, and it's there. And I think by being more conscious, and actually one tool to do that is to think more sustainably, not just, as you say, just think about being fully sustainable, but actually just more conscious, more understanding of the people around you, people who are using the spaces, people you're going to partner with potentially. Talk us through your journey of sustainability, David, and how you've got to where you are now. And I don't know, has it always been accepted as a designer who has a really sort of unapologetic view to sustainability?
No, I mean, we're kind of growing in our activism and I guess the kind of singular nature of our opinions, but we have started working across a myriad of sectors, whether it's retail, restaurant, all different office design, and we didn't come with that original agenda. But then through various projects, it's a long story and I won't go through it because it's not particularly interesting. It wasn't an epiphany. We just slowly realized we needed to ask more and more questions. You always want to do things right and have integrity in the way we do it. And when you start asking what integrity really is, it's about how you conduct yourself, how you treat your clients, but then also how you treat the staff and the employees, how you treat customers, how you treat the environment. And we realized we couldn't ask the question or answer the question, what does it mean to be sustainable? And when you really dig into that, you might look from an architecture point of view at BREEAM or SCAR or these assessment systems, but they're still linear. Like, okay, we start a project, we do the best we can, and then we finish. Is that enough? Have we solved climate change? Like, have we solved the system? And the answer is no. So we went on a bit of a journey of learning, and then once we came across the principle of circular economy and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. If anyone doesn't know about them, look them up, they're amazing. They'll explain it a lot more articulately than I will. But the point is, right now we live in a linear economy, i.e. we dig stuff up out the ground, we turn it into something, we use it for a bit, we get bored or it breaks, and then we get rid of it. Whereas what we need to do is take that line and effectively wrap it round on itself so it becomes a circle. So we design out waste and pollution, we keep natural resources in use for as long as possible, and we regenerate natural systems. And that's the whole point of circular economy. And now we've dedicated ourselves to understanding how do we apply that to the cycle of design and fit out, from the moment you go in to demolish and strip out a site, through all of the design processes, looking at carbon, looking at biodiversity, all those pieces, through to end of life and designing for disassembly, making sure you work with responsible manufacturers who are going to take back their materials at the end of the job, if the thing goes sideways or closes. So that was our journey, and that's where we are now. So we've developed this thing called a restorative design framework, which pulls that together, and we wouldn't claim to have all the answers by any means. We probably never will have all of them, but we're pretty sure we've got the right map up the mountain.
I think that's the point. You haven't got all the answers, and no designer or architect has. But what's wonderful from a client's perspective when you're working with a designer who really cares is that you're going to be working on that together, and it's a collaboration, and it's not like you're claiming that you have all the answers. I'm speaking to the architects at the moment. There's one who now puts forward two budgets, one being the cost and the other being the carbon cost. So for example, if they wanted to create a spectacular lobby, they can do that, that's fine, but it's going to cost them this much carbon. Therefore in the bedroom, why not reduce that? And that allows the client to understand the concepts and the process, I guess, that interior designers are going down. One misconception I think we need to bring up, though, is that the sustainable alternative more expensive, and how do you weigh up that value?
I think it's...
Sorry to be that person.
No. I think it's a really interesting question, and it makes me... I'm trying to work out which way to come at it from. I think if you want to design in the same way that we do, and just swap out one material for an eco version, then there are situations where that will cost more money. But the point is we need to ask different design decisions, rather than building a stud wall and putting plywood and plasterboard and skimming it and doing all those processes and then going, oh, let's go for eco, FSC plywood costs more, we can't do that. Why are we doing that treatment on the wall? Why are we putting the plasterboard and skimming it and painting it? Why are we adding those processes in? There's a guiding question that we try and work to, which is what is the least we can do to make something excellent? Because that is it, and you can apply that by any brand. If you are a brand that wants a more special experience, you need to do more, probably. And if you are a more kind of humble, local eatery, then you probably can do less. And some can be a bit more rough in the way they look, and others need to be a bit more refined. But that question has to stay the same. Like, what is the absolute least we can do to do something excellent? Because the excellent isn't up for debate either. Frankly, there's a lot of not excellent out there on the high street, and a lot of not excellent design. So if we can get that up by doing less, then surely we're in a better place. For sure, and actually it's about value as well. And I understand that the budget isn't endless, but you can add so much authentic value to.
I want to say something about sustainability. I think that I don't know why, but it's really marketed in a very wrong way. I think we should speak about sustainability not as homework that we need to do, not some like a burden that, okay, let's tick that bloody box and yes, say we are sustainable. No, it's not about that. I think it's a mindset. And I think if you design with this mindset, you are already eliminating all kinds of possibilities that you would have taken if you didn't have this mindset. So if you ask me if it's a much more expensive project, I'm not sure at all, because if you come with this mindset, then you know that necessity is the mother of invention. So with this mindset, you go in now, design whatever you want to design, and I think surprisingly enough, you will discover that it doesn't cost more, because of invention, you are able to bring together amazing combinations, creating beautiful spatial experiences, because this is your mindset. This is how you do it. This is how you cook. This is how you write your music. With these tones, you don't use these tones. You use these notes. You know. So
I completely agree.
I guess
this is how you do it.
to make it relevant and understanding for this audience, I would say that it's like looking at your menu. You know, you don't just source locally because it's sustainable.
No,
you source
no,
locally because that's
no.
adding to the whole experience and feel, actually.
It's part of your narrative as well,
Yes.
because you want to do the link between the projects and the place, and this it's the big picture. It's not about functionality.
I think also from our perspective, you know, we also do back of house design. So there was that question there, is it more expensive to be sustainable? Well, it might be in the interim, but then you almost have to look at that bigger picture, don't you? So over a 10-year period, what's that going to cost me to be sustainable? And I think that goes back to what kind of David was saying, really, about seeing like circular
That's the
economy.
other thing
Yeah.
as well. Durability has to come into it. I mean, as business owners, we want a space that we don't get. We're not going to want to have to redesign in 10 years' time. We
But
want
you
it
know,
to
but you
stand
see
the
more
test
and
of
more.
time.
You see more and more owners and developers thinking with this mindset. So it goes without saying. Of course, we are not going to use this. Of course, we are not going to do this. You know. So there's a broader, I think, recognition, understanding, will to do it really the proper way.
Yeah.
I
And
think it's
also, your clients are already asking for it. You know, there are websites where they tell you which hotel is more sustainable than the other. You know, where does he buy the goods? Where he buys the linen? Where is it coming from? You know, all of that stuff interests people. People want to know what are they using.
I think it's
So-
about resilience actually
Yes.
now. It's actually just it is a selfish business decision right now to invest in understanding sustainability, because if you don't, the next 5-10 years, the things are going to change so much that you will be left behind. And I don't think there's actually any surprise that people who do care, businesses that care, we work with Gale's Bakery, for example, they're expanding rapidly. We design for them. The sites aren't costing any more than the other sites that they're doing with other architects. Like if Mowgli, for example, really care about what they do. Like people that care build resilient businesses that are for people, planet, and profit. And guess what? The public responds to them because they can see that people care. I'm kind of slightly obsessed with this behavioural idea that so much of any design decision comes down to the filter should be: are we being clear with our customers that they can see our effort and intentions? Because that's what when we walk into a space and it feels cheap, that is what we feel. We feel like, you didn't care. So if you didn't care about this, what am I not seeing behind it? Where's your chicken come from? And I think that the power of design is a force, as a psychological signal to your customers, as well as physically looking after them and adding to their experience. But it gives off this sense about what you're doing in the rest of the business, which is why it can be such a bad idea to let that just happen in this really over-engineered cheap way.
I'm glad you said sense, because I really want to come on to this. I've just reviewed a hotel in Portugal, and oh my goodness, it was a whole sensory experience. They used chromotherapy, they used all of the senses, and to be honest with you, when I looked at the brief, I thought, this is gimmicky. This is not going to work. But it was so meaningfully created, and I just kind of wonder, on the projects you're working on now, are you looking at sensory design? And I'm not talking about the pubs with rooms. I'm talking about like the restaurants that are really trying to create that feeling. Because I want to go back to the question, how can restaurant design get consumers back dining? And tell me if I'm wrong, that is through experiences, unmatched experiences along the way.
I'm happy to jump in, but I'm aware I'm talking a lot, so I don't want to monopolise anyone else.
No.
Well,
Start.
Well,
Irene
Alan,
and I-
Irene, perhaps
No,
to
no, it's
answer
okay.
this,
Irene,
but
yes.
to answer this, you can explain a bit more about the urban playground, because I know we've touched upon it, but I really want the audience to understand what you're doing, because it's pretty groundbreaking, I think, combining all of those hospitality styles.
Actually, this is something that you have a lot here in the UK and also in America. In the United States, it's about the very big venues where people come to be together and to play together. This one that we just finished the design of it's in Manchester, and I believe that most of you know the TV show The Cube. So it's a cube on the
people
ground.
aren't- So people aren't there. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I just want to explain. So people aren't necessarily there to sit down and enjoy a meal. They're there to have an experience, and
They-
then the food is almost an afterthought, but it's not, because it's so consciously designed into the experience. I think that's really important.
Yeah, exactly. People come there to play together, to be together, to enjoy life together. And this is exactly what's going on. Now, this place is 4,000 square meters of a super big venue with Patters and the Cube, and they are expanding. They are expanding to huge venues of, we are just now designing 30,000 square meters of urban playgrounds with many F&B venues and different venues of competitive socializing. That this is exactly what it's about.
So,
Yeah,
with,
it's
go on, Alan.
the thing is that we are really living in an era where the threshold of anticipation and we need a very high threshold, because in some sort of a fashion we lost the sensibility for the simple things of life. Like, how many of you sit at a restaurant, you get your meal at the table, what do you do first? You take your phone and you don't even look at the food, you just take your iPhone and you take a photograph of it. But hey, the chef, he prepared this for you specially, look at it. Enjoy the colors, the textures, the smells, everything before you but it's like we are losing this kind of touch with the simple things of life. But we are designers, we go with the time, we need to bridge. We are the bridge between a brand and society. So Urban Playground is a multifaceted and multisensorial arena for people to come. And we are bringing the threshold higher and higher, because this is how we are today, unfortunately or fortunately. But if you stand against it, you'll be left behind. But through our work, we are trying to still design spaces that make people want to come back to. So they are not gimmick. It's not a fad. It's not fashion. It's not something that in 2 weeks from now you say, oh, enough.
But also the technology that's been injected into that project won't work for other projects. It stays within its lane.
But it's very subtle. You don't see technology.
Yeah.
You feel the input of it, but you don't see it. We don't speak about technology. It's like this is how we live.
I'd probably still argue that I don't even know if the experience is the point. That's still a journey to something else. We started from selling stuff, if you look at retail as an analogy, and then we've gone through experiences. Now, obviously, restaurants measure on experiences because that's where you go out, but that's not the end goal.
No.
The goal is about the human connection that is
Absolutely.
created because of those experiences. So really, if we want to push beyond, there's really challenging. The whole idea of luxury is challenging because there's a very selfishness that around so much of it, and we need to separate the kind of the ego and the vanity and the rarity, which frankly is the bit we don't need in society, to the bit that is genuinely a bit more selfless but special and caring. And we do have room for special experiences that are a bit more of a one-off. But the point beyond experience is that we're trying to create things that embed themselves in the local community. You don't want you'd hate it if someone came along, some influencer, took some photos, I'm having a great time, and then never went back again. That's a failure of a project, isn't it? Because you want to create something that is embedded, even if you, move to the hotel side, look at the Four Seasons Hotel, the book, the Story of a Business Philosophy. They talk about how they were looking to embed in communities whenever they put down a hotel. Every business has to have roots. You know, it has to bleed into its community if it wants to survive. And that could be really deep, as like a one-off independent, or that could be a brand like a Mowgli, which, you know, people are crying out for them to come, and they just want them to come into their community and be part of it. So I do think experience is still a stepping stone that we can get hung up on as designers sometimes.
I mean, that's really interesting, because we move into new eras all the time. I would say, from my perspective as a journalist, we've gone from storytelling to content creation, and it's kind of the same, I guess, within design and hospitality, in the sense that you're saying we're going from experiences now to back the relationships, and I guess that is all an experience, that journey, if you want to get philosophical about it, I guess. Let's talk about luxury then. You tapped into it. Without using the word too much in this panel discussion, I would say that the new luxury, or the luxury that we've had for some years but now has been evolved, is those unmatched, uncurated experiences that customers aren't expecting when they walk in, and it kind of just happens. Obviously that starts arguably with the service, but design also has a role there, does it not? What is the role?
Everyone's looking to me again. Yeah, my opinions can be quite contrary about the idea of luxury, but yeah, please.
No, Claire, do you want to take this in regards to luxury? I mean, you've come from operation to design, so that's quite an interesting...
So something, actually myself and my colleague were talking about earlier, that's really important when creating environment, is that connection between kind of operation and consumerism, really, and obviously operationally somewhere needs to run really well, and that can create, if a staff's happy, it can create that feeling of luxury. You know, you go into a space, if the staff aren't working well, or they don't feel they're doing something special, then as a guest you don't feel like you're receiving something special. And I think, I mean, what is luxury now? I think we've lost so much over the last few years that the simple things became luxurious.
Are you
again.
finding clients are finding their brand a challenge, finding their brand identity a challenge because of the convergence between lifestyle and luxury? And I think you two are definitely the result of that with the projects you work on.
Listen, I agree.
It's so hard in this day and age with social media and everything. Businesses kind of have to be all things to all people, but at what point do they rubbish the noise and just go with what they
I think that the most important, for me, all the sense of luxury, I agree with it, changed a lot. Luxury today, it's when the client feels that he's the center of all of your decisions. Then he feels that you see him. And this is what we are trying to do when we design something, thinking about the people that we design for. It's creating a context for emotions, context for life. We don't think about objects. We think about people. We think about how people move in the space, what people aiming to do, how they interact to each other. You know, many, many years ago, really many years ago, before iPhones and mobile phones were around, we were asked to design a bar in Tel Aviv. There weren't so many bars at that time, so we took a plane, we flew to New York. We were there 3 days. We did 8 bars each night, 24 bars with a sketchbook. And all what we try to do is to understand the interaction between people. We didn't sketch how the table looks and how the front of the bar is and what is the material. We did diagrams of interaction of people to understand what are people expecting when they are in such an environment. I think that this, it resumes what really it's us as designers. When we design, we need to think about the people. They are the most important thing. It's not our fantasies. It's understanding how people feel themselves the best. And this is at the bottom line of design. It's for the people. It's not for the pocket. It's for the people. And when you are doing right things, you are doing a good, you also do good business.
Do you feel...
Yes, I think that for me, luxury today is, again, the simple things like for me, honesty is luxury. I mean, how much honesty can you get today? You know, authenticity is luxury. How many things are authentic today? You know, so, and then of course I agree with Irene that we design for people. That's the meaning of what we do. And in order to do that, we need to understand people. That's why we sketch diagrams of interaction and not diagrams of design, which couldn't help us because we didn't understood the venues of bars. Well, sorry, what? So we learned. So for us, really, luxury is bringing people together and let them, you know, connect and exchange and go and do with it whatever they want. But at the end of the day, it's also not only about design, it's about the people that, you know, take the space that we did and then 24/7 bring their blood, soul, and energy into it. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. I mean, you cannot, I haven't seen any successful project economically just because of design. It doesn't exist. Okay?
Yeah.
It's all about people.
I think
And
that's a
vice
really
versa.
interesting point. I think for me, when you look at the three components of, say, a restaurant space, what feels special, it's actually the service is the point, because it's the most immediate human connection. Design is actually the last, you know, because we know it's been designed, but we don't see that person. The food is the second, because you can maybe see the chef over there, maybe there's an open kitchen, maybe you see the bartender making the cocktail, so the human connection is more immediate, and from a sensory perspective, you're eating it. I mean, you're not going to get a more intimate experience than that. But the service is the main thing. That's why, you know, we can go to the most amazing 5-star wonderful place, but if the waitress or waiter, you know, keeps you waiting for too long when you wait for the bill, that will be your memory of the entire experience, because from a service perspective, you feel slighted as a human. So I actually think, luxury is the human connection with other people. And I think the danger is to get hooked on aesthetics and like a luxury aesthetic, which is, again, going back to the signaling point, the sole job in that instance is to signal that you've cared and put effort in, which is why some people just get lazy and go, well, let's just put marble everywhere, because everyone knows marble's expensive, so let's do marble.
I'd agree, but sorry, just a brief point there, just with what you're saying there about the human connection. When we're designing spaces, we often design the front and back of house, because that's how as a business we work, and that synergy between those areas is really important in creating that human connection and giving the consumer what they need.
I really love the era that we're in right now in the chapter. It seems very sort of human-centric in both design and hospitality. I don't mean to put a dampener on this conversation, but there's a storm brewing, and it's called the metaverse. Social media is one thing. We've talked from huge brands about the metaverse, and we've had some intel recently that it's coming sooner rather than later. We're currently in a state of swinging between somewhere of impossible and the inescapable when it comes to this meta. So this is the 3D interconnected virtual space where users are going to be able to feel like they're in a real life. And I look at the industry that we're in now, and Deliveroo, all of those services, you know, they're giving you that restaurant food and quality arguably at your doorstep. The metaverse, I don't think we can escape it. When you look at how impactful social media has you know, what social media has done to our industry, good and bad and in between, how do we escape the metaverse, and how can we evolve from a design perspective so that not everything is virtual? So it's quite a loaded question, but I'm really interested to understand your...
Sounds a nightmare, I must say.
A nightmare.
I don't think
Get off the ship.
I don't think we can escape it. It's happening, and that's the fact. It's happening. People buy artwork through the metaverse. They have currency through the metaverse. I think what we need to try and do is
But
almost
socially, people
it's
are...
petrifying.
We're talking about
yes.
human-centric design.
Well,
Like,
I think maybe there's a space for both. I don't know. I think you have specialist bars that just let you experience in the metaverse. You go into VR rooms, you experience something different, you don't talk to real people. Maybe there's space for that, but we still need to have that human interaction and design in the traditional sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting and probably inevitable if, for me personally, you know, utterly bewildering and slightly pointless. But I mean, I think it's fascinating when you look at the technology that we've gone from, you know, you go back to ancient Greece and Socrates, who wouldn't write anything down because he thought that the art of oration and losing that the human piece would be be too much to lose by doing this horrible thing of this writing technology, which to us would be hilarious. And then we've gone from people talking to each other to writing to audio and radio through television, through VR, and now we're getting back, we can almost recreate real life. Well, here's real life, why don't we just switch it off and go and talk to each other? But it will be inevitable. There will be lots of companies that will make lots of money. There will be some interesting concepts that are immersive, and I wish them all the best.
And at the end, we are going to go back to human contact.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, this is kind of where I want to leave the conversation, not necessarily on a downer, but what is the power of design in all of this? As whatever the change is next, what should clients and businesses really focus on with design? And I think we've kind of answered it in regards to humans and behaviour.
It's, focusing on I think what your consumer and the experience and what you can give back to them. That's what people want. I think when they want to go out is the experience. And I think if you're looking at, starting a new business or refurbishing a space, you've got look at how you can create that sense of community. I think
Yes,
as well.
absolutely.
We said earlier.
I think that whatever we do, I think we need to always broaden the perspective of what we're thinking about. And I think that even if we do, a restaurant or whatever, there is a community behind it. There are more people around it. That if we start thinking, how can we make this space also a space for them, and how can we integrate something that they lack, because we have the space, they have a crave for space. Maybe we can share it together, and we see it's coming like a tsunami into the hospitality now.
Collaborations.
You see a student hotel which are doing great job with the community, and Selena as well, and you will see more and more and more, and you see how hospitality becoming one of the answers to densifying cities where young people cannot afford to be in the center, but the hotels which have so many spaces, empty spaces or public spaces, say, you know what, come work chez nous. Come work and do whatever you want in our public spaces and make them yours. So it's a win-win situation. The community uses the hospitality can serve the community back, so it's a win-win kind of a situation.
And it's good for the planet. We are coming back to sustainability.
Yeah.
Actually, it's an attitude.
So you see more and more like a guest room changing, morphing into WeWork from 8 till 5. Then 6 o'clock somebody checks in, makes it his sleeping area. Next morning, same thing. So you got 150% of occupancy, which nobody heard of before. So this is where hospitality can thrive, and the community as well. Because I can rent my room at your hotel from 8 till 4, for 3 times a week. So do the calculation that you see that suddenly the hotel is becoming beyond hospitality.
And also by doing that, you have to then make sure that space is locally embedded to the
Yes,
community around,
absolutely,
because it has
yeah.
to be accepted as well.
Sure.
And it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Claire, about being a space that evolves throughout
Multifunctional and
the
evolves around
day.
the clock. Yeah.
I do think it's worth probably ending on there's a really interesting quote by a guy called Rory Sutherland. He's got an amazing book called Alchemy, which is the power of ideas that don't make sense. And he talks about, one of the chapters is that the opposite of a good idea can also be a good idea. And I think it's very easy in these conversations, particularly when we start talking about the future, is we map out some trends and go, this is the way things are going to go and it's going to be. And frankly, the almost polar opposite of what any one of us says at one time will work in a situation. When we think about the future and what hospitality should be and these trends, we're drawn in certain directions. Normally it was about robots for reasons I don't quite understand, but there's an amazing little cafe on Sicily somewhere, and in 20 years' time, they're going to be doing exactly the same thing, and that will be absolutely fine. And I think what we need to just find and isolate when any hospitality operator is looking at their concept and what they're doing is to find this thing that is valuable enough to be planted in the right areas that it can grow and be this little ecosystem. And that might be a slightly more peacocky bar experience, or that might be a slightly more humble cafe, or that could be a luxury hotel group. I think it's just understanding that there is no one answer. There never will be. And if we try and find one, then, well, frankly, it'd be really boring if we did find it.
I also think I hear a lot from businesses that they ask, what the value of an interior designer is, and I think it's just this: collaboration, new ideas. You want to create a human-centric business, well, by doing so through human-centric ways in regards to design as well as service as well. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I did want to just open it up to the audience. If anyone's got any questions, I'm sure we've got a roaming microphone. Anyone, feel free. Any case studies, any design inspiration you want? If not, it's absolutely fine. No worries. Oh, one question. Which hotel? It was the Six Senses Douro Valley, and they're working with a company called My Cocoon, and it was incredible actually. They throughout the stay, I had to do a number of colour tests throughout the whole thing, and it gives you your colour there and then. At the end, it gives you an average of what your colour is. But then through all the treatments, through all the service, you had like little injections of sensory design. There was one menu which was had all the colours of the rainbow, but essentially it challenged the chef to think outwardly and in regards to being more creative, because he had to pair the right ingredients and then the sommeliers as well with the wine as well. It was just, to be honest with you, it wasn't about the senses in the end. It ended up being the business expanding beyond, the boundaries in order to create new, authentic ways while also staying relevant to a luxury audience. And I think it's those lessons we can all learn. It's not about that individual thing that's planted in the hotel or the restaurant. It's about the whole journey to get to that point. So, and the value of that is beyond. So yeah. So I think that's it. So I just want to thank our amazing panelists. We've got Claire Smith, David Chenery, Alon Baranowitz and Irene Kronenberg, and we're around afterwards if you want to talk to us. Thank you.